Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Awake and Thriving podcast. Today, we have with us Dr. Lindsey Elmore. She is a pharmacist turned natural wellness educator. She's a certified yoga instructor and emotional release educator. She's taught in 40 countries and 4 continents, and her intent is to put the soul back into pharmacy and Western healthcare. Welcome, Dr. Elmore.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, definitely. So I wanted to find out, I was looking over your biography and it's amazing. Like I think I told you earlier, it feels like Disneyland. There's just so many ways we can go and just chat about. And I know we chatted for quite a bit just before I pressed record. So if we can start at maybe the transition from like pharmacy, what brought you into eventually like essential oils and wellness educator.
Well, it was a long journey. Back when I was in pharmacy school, I went skiing for the first time and I tore my ACL. And when you tear your ACL, your leg gets placed in a brace and the brace holds your knee straight. So your knee isn't bending every time that you walk. Well, that means that every time you walk, you have to hike a hip each time. So I was studying one day and I realized that I couldn't sit squarely on my bum anymore. And I realized that wasn't normal and it was starting to cause some pain. And I just kept pressing on my hips, trying to get squared up again. Somehow I had enough consciousness and enough wherewithal to schedule an appointment with a chiropractor. And during that visit with the chiropractor, I happened to mention that, hey, doc, I haven't slept in like a month and I feel like I may die. I am so exhausted. And she referred me to the acupuncturist for the first time. And I went into the acupuncturist and it was almost like my whole world kind of flipped over a little bit because I realized that there were completely different concepts of health, completely different concepts of wellness, completely different concepts of how to treat the human body. And so I was an avid practitioner of acupuncture, not practitioner, but an avid patient, of acupuncture for about the next 7 years. And I still go, but not like once a month, every month, like I was back in the day. But that opened my eyes. And from there, I started exploring shamanic medicine was my next kind of foray. And that was not really an academic pursuit, just finding the right people in my path along my way. I started learning more about herbs. I started becoming interested in how do drugs and herbals interplay with one another. And I continued on that journey and I became kind of the pharmacist who everybody was like, well, she's a little wacky. She can tell you about minerals and nutrients and things as well as medications. And somewhere along the way, I kept seeing a friend post that essential oils will change your life. And I was like, well, this chick is out of her mind because I got like 4 essential oils and ain't none of them changed my life. And I go to the beach one day and I get very sunburned and I go to the grocery store. I say, do you have anything for sunburn? And they sell me this product. And it was like the heavens opened up and the anti-sunburn gods came down to visit me. And I was like, what is this? And I loved it. And I used the whole bottle. Couple months go by. I can't find it at a local store. I can't find it online, anything. So I take a step back and I go, well, I am a licensed pharmacist. Chances are whatever this product is, I will be able to make it because in the essence of pharmacy is the practice of compounding. It's about bringing together different ingredients into mixtures that are intended to be used as medication. So it's not like making a skin spray was out of my wheelhouse. So I turn around the back of the bottle and inside of the bottle is water and seaweed extract and calendula oil and vitamin E oil, as well as some essential oils, lavender, geranium, sandalwood, and Roman chamomile. I end up getting some essential oils from my friend who says they'll change your life. And I had this really powerful moment that is a very emotional moment. So you can't quite explain it in words,
Mhm.
but I instantly knew that my life was going to change. I didn't know how and I didn't know why, but I just knew that I was instantly driven to learn as much as I could about essential oils, their history, their chemistry, the way that they interact with the body, the different ways that they are metabolized, which ones are safe in pregnancy, which ones are safe in pets. So I just went to town learning as much as I could about essential oils. And then I started teaching online and people just went crazy and they were like, I cannot believe that there is this much real information about essential oils, and that morphed into supplements, and that morphed into me getting this absolutely life-changing job with an essential oil company that I loved. It was a dream job for me at the time, and it allowed me to travel the whole world, and to really explore. And it also gave me the opportunity, 2.5 years into the job path, they asked me, would you like to stay an employee or would you like to become an entrepreneur? And like, would you like to be a consultant for us? Like, we want to keep you on. We still want you to work with us, but it, they saw something in me. The opportunity was there. The timing was perfect. And I had been around enough entrepreneurs to know that that was the only way to live.
Yeah.
And so I jumped at it. I totally jumped at it and started my own company. Fear is a powerful motivator. And so I was up every morning at 5 a.m. I wrote my first book. I started going crazy. I really became even more dedicated to teaching online, launched my first course, all the things. And fast forward now, we're almost 4 years in, and it has become a business strategy session. It's given me the opportunities to do more trainings that are near and dear to me. That was when since I've become an entrepreneur, and because of the flexibility of the work I do, I was able to move to Thailand for a month and do my yoga teacher training. I was able to do some emotional release training and really just further my education, get back into it. And then after 6 years of being out of pharmacy practice, I've been out of pharmacy practice for 6 years. I've always maintained my licenses, but I decided that I really wanted to make some more connections with pharmacists. And that was a major vision for me for 2020, was I wanted connections with other pharmacists, because I realized there have to be more pharmacists who believe that health and wellness matters.
Mhm.
And I wanted to go find them. And that is now the newest part of my journey. So it's a long, winding road, and it brought me here.
Yay, that is an amazing journey that you've been on. Can you tell me, what do the pharmacists like? I told you before, I haven't really ever spoken to a pharmacist about the stuff that we're discussing right now. What are they saying? Like, what are their interpretations about what's going on, about essential oils, about all of this?
Well, I do have some pharmacists in around me that are all about the essential oils. I have others that are still very skeptical. But
Hmm.
I do think that among the medical profession as a whole,
Mhm.
there are certain people who really believe in more ancient understandings of health. You know, the
Mhm.
Western medical model is absolutely incomparable if you're in the middle of a heart attack. It is absolutely incomparable if you need an emergency operation because of a tragic car accident that you just had. But I think that it fails to notice all of the steps along the way that led you to having fulminant hepatic failure. Like, why did no one bring up to you at any point in time that you shouldn't be drinking, or probably shouldn't be taking that much Tylenol, or hey, you have really high risk for hepatitis.
Yeah.
Here's how we prevent that. we don't take a look at that. And what I learned by getting back in and starting talking to more pharmacists, more physicians, more nurses, is that there's actually a very strong cohort of people who understand that vitamin deficiencies and mineral deficiencies make a huge impact in the way that your body is able to function. There are a ton of healthcare professionals who truly believe that sleep matters and stress reduction matters. And I think we're increasingly seeing more and more healthcare systems focus at least a little bit more on mindfulness and wellness, because just like the average American gets burned out, so does the average physician, and so does the average pharmacist, and so does the average nurse. And when doctors and pharmacists and nurses and dietitians, when we get burned out, it unfortunately leads to something called empathy fatigue, where we're so tired of giving our heart to understand the other person's perspective, to see where they're coming from, to meet people where they are. You know, when it is frustrating if you have an overall healthy life and someone day after day after day is walking into your office and saying, I want to cure my diabetes. And you say, okay, well, let's start with an elimination diet, or let's start with, I see you're drinking 11 cans of soda a day. Could we go to 10 for the next week? And you come back and we'll talk about it some more. And when you're met with that constant, why is the system built this way? Why is the system built around unhealthy food that disenfranchises people, a go, 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 go kind of work environment where we measure ourselves by our accolades versus the things that really matter, that we actually want people to say about us after we're gone? When you're met day after day with, I can't work in this system. I just can't. There are people who can, and God love them. We could not live without them. But there are a lot of people that just take a step back and go, I need to do this differently. I need to do this differently. And I want to attract people that want to do it differently too. And so that allows us to maintain our empathy and to maintain our understanding. I mean, I take my oath as a pharmacist very, very seriously. And that means that at the top of my concern is the welfare of humanity and the relief of suffering. If I can continually just say, how do I do that every day, all day, and no matter what incarnation that I do it, that means that I can show up for someone. And even if I'm frustrated with them, I want to bang them against the top of the head because they say they want one thing, they behave as if they want another thing. If I just say the welfare of this person's humanity is the only thing that matters to me right now, that has put me in situations as a pharmacist where I will show love to people in ways that a lot of pharmacists won't. I mean, you know, I don't work in a conventional pharmacy, and I didn't very often, but when I did, or when patients came to my clinic, they could tell me anything. You know, you could come in and tell me that you need clean needles, that you need an HIV test because you had a crazy weekend last weekend and this happened and that happened. You know, I had 75-year-old ladies telling me about their cocaine habits. And I just said, and my response to it was always, okay, well, how often are you doing that? Because that allows me to take care of their blood pressure medicines correctly, dang it. And that is what I want to do. How do I honor the humanity of the person in front of me? And I realize that being in practice where I can encourage people to meditate and practice yoga and eat better and focus on healthy relationships and have that 30 seconds of crazy to break up with their boyfriend or delete that crappy person from their phone. If I can convince even just one person, that health and wellness is within you. It's just waiting for you to look at it and say, I love you. Let's be besties for life.
Yeah.
My work is done. And that's all I'm here for.
Well, I love that. I adore that. And a lot of the things that, when I was just reading about what your autobiography, it just rang true for me, especially just like, um, just the transition to acupuncture. I've spoken with acupuncturists, and what they can do is so it's underestimated, I think, a lot in Western society. I think we are going through a big awakening, a big shift, and people are looking that way. But still a lot of education, and people out there need that in order to move and even try it. Some people are still afraid to try chiropractors. I've actually encountered plenty of them in Western medicine that are afraid to go to the chiropractor for one reason
Well,
or another.
it's very interesting. So I had, on my podcast, I had my own personal chiropractor on my show. And I did not know that there was a smear campaign against chiropractors in the late 80s and early 90s. So, when people think about chiropractor, that number one concern, it causes stroke. Somebody could break your neck. That was actually just a smear campaign headed up by the American Medical Association. And the American Chiropractic Association actually sued the American Medical Association for slander and won. But their messaging was so profound and so meaningful and so useful and so ingrained in us. We still have people who believe it. We still have people who believe it.
Yeah, it's so widely, that's how they think. They think like, oh, they're going to pinch a nerve, they're going to break my neck. And the thing is chiropractic and acupuncturists are covered by most insurance companies as of right now. But a lot of people won't even partake in that because of, I suppose, some of that smear campaign. And the acupuncturists are really far out there for a lot of people, especially if you don't live on one of the coasts. I think inland, like in the heartland, it's a little bit, I don't know. They just don't have as much info as the people on the coast do. So they're not as open minded. They're moving that way, but they're not maybe as open to it as the people on the east and the west coast are. So,
well, and I think that for any of like the acupuncturists in these areas where they don't have this huge patient population and they just say, I don't know why, but I have to do this in middle of nowhere, Kansas, or I have to return to my hometown. I've experienced those feelings too. There were times in my life that I knew going back to my roots was the right thing. I eventually realized that pulling up the roots and moving forward was right for me. But I have a very close friend who has remained on land very near to her childhood home. She struggled. She had to lobby at the state level because acupuncture in the state of Alabama is almost like a swear word. Like, we just do not talk about such things. And one of my former acupuncturists, who I absolutely love and adore, she is a soul sister to me in this universe. I kept telling her, I'm like, why don't you go to Colorado? Like, why don't you go back to where you trained? Go somewhere where you could have a thriving practice with hundreds of patients within no time flat. And she just said, no, I have to do it here. I have to do it here. And so for all of the acupuncturists out there, they're like, I don't know why, but I have 14 patients and I'm like constantly out there. Like, have you heard of acupuncture? Keep your chin up, because to me, that's Earth Mother work. That's you raising up, planting seeds that will outlive you. The West Coast out there and their like Vata wind energy, they're like, we did it. We are all here. And so, but we need it all. We need it all. And so we need people who are going to raise up the earth. We need those fiery people that are going to be that acupuncturist or be that chiropractor, whoever who does 1,000 podcasts and does the online thing, all those things. but we also just need people who fully embrace who they are. So wherever you are, whatever you're doing, fully embrace it. And the goodness will manifest, be that monetarily, be it in the mind shift of a small town, whatever it is. The work that we do really matters on a much bigger scale than ourselves.
Yeah, definitely. I truly believe that. And that was when I went into this podcast, I just wanted people to get that information. I wanted people to be educated about it because I just ultimately want someone to take at least one step into a direction they've never been to, whether it's chiropractor or an acupuncturist, just something.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, and if all of that sounds outlandish, start with a 30 seconds of meditation at your home. If everything sounds outlandish, just think about what doesn't. Like, what actually makes you feel comfortable? What makes you feel like, no, I can't twist myself into a pretzel, but I can probably stand on both of my 2 feet and soften my gaze at a spot in front of me for 30 seconds. That is yoga. That is yoga. And so disciplining the mind and quieting the mind quiets the body, which disciplines the body, and disciplining the body can discipline the mind. Quieting the body, so it's all reciprocal. It all gives. It's all an exchange that's really pure and really beautiful.
Yes. Yeah, I totally believe in all of that. I feel like they all intertwine because if you're not in a good emotional state, even though you may be exercising and eating right, something's going to be amiss. Something's going to go off. And it's because you may be depressed, you may be sad, and you may be going to exercise and trying to eat well, but they're not going to balance out because your emotional state has to change a little bit. So I've encountered that myself. Like I will always exercise and I'll always eat right. That's kind of just what I've done since my father was a health nut. But I'll go through changes in life where like I'm super stressed out or I'm like upset about something. And despite those good habits I have, the emotional state will put me off balance. It just always will. And I'll have to rebalance myself in order to be healthy.
Yeah. I mean, we all have those moments of stress.
Mm-hmm.
But I had a guest on my podcast ask me a really profound question, and I'll share it with your audience. And she said, listen, if you have stress in your life, is it really worth the fight or flight response? And if you can just stop and say, like, okay, I'm sitting in traffic and it's frustrating. My husband and I just had a fight and it's frustrating. I somewhere in this room right now have a kitten that may all of a sudden decide to attack me. That's going to be frustrating. But is it really worth the fight or flight response? Is it really worth your blood pressure going up? Is it really worth starting to get the sweats? Or even worse, is it really worth a week from now you still ruminating over that fight that you and your husband had and playing it back in your mind? How many of you have had arguments with people that you don't like in your mind? Like you're waiting for that one moment where they say that one phrase because you've got that perfect thing to come back. It's a fabrication. And so one of the things that has helped me is just think about the current moment. You cannot have stress in the current moment because stress in a lot of ways is wanting the past to be different, wanting the future to be something different, or as Eckhart Tolle says, stress is nothing more than wanting the present moment to be something other than what it is. And so what if you just stopped and said, for at least this moment, I have no stress for just this moment. I can worry about my kids going back to school this fall in 5 minutes. I
Mm-hmm.
can worry about the fight I had with my colleague last week in 5 minutes. But for this and the next second and the next second and the next second, for the next 5 minutes, what is that? 300 seconds. That's not that long. And so how do we transform ourselves simply by saying, I'm going to take just a minute, a 2 minutes, a 3 minutes, a whatever it is, to realize that there's absolutely no stress that I'm experiencing right now, and help to bring our body back to normal.
Yeah. Yeah. That's sure. Like that's so many people need to hear that. Especially I feel like we're in this hamster wheel in maybe all of like Europe and America, where we're just going, and stress is accepted as that's just what happens to you if you have a job. And I don't feel like it should be that way. It's not like that for me anymore. And I feel like
It doesn't have to be.
yeah, yeah, definitely. You have to make that choice. And a lot of people that I know, they think once they make that choice, that they just won't be as profitable. They won't bring in the money. But I feel like it has the opposite effect. It kind of releases you in a way that sets you free to do what you need to do. And because you kind of follow your true intention of what you want to give in this world, besides what you're told you need to give.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that for women,
Mm-hmm.
it's extraordinarily hard to go against what you've been told that you're supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And there is nothing more soul sacrificing than not being what you actually want to be, not being who you actually are. And so, if you're built to run that rat race and that's who you are, awesome,
Yeah.
do that. But if you're built that way, it won't stress you out.
Yeah.
I am a self-confessed workaholic. I go, but I also inject balance into my life, but I love to work. I love it. It is just, but it doesn't stress me out.
Mm-hmm.
I can have 50 things that I need to do on my to-do list, as well as a 5-year plan and a 10-year plan and a 15-year plan, but it doesn't stress me out. It doesn't make me nervous for the tasks that I have in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
But I do find that if you're in situations that are stressing you out, there's a discord between who you are and the role that you are being assigned.
Mm-hmm.
Be that at work, be that in a miserable marriage,
Mm-hmm.
be that in a yoga class where you just feel like this is pushing me too far, or I'm going to get injured. If, no matter where it is, if you're in a meditation and you just get some off feeling about like, why did he put his hands on me like that? Don't ignore those things. Those stressors come up for a reason. We
Yeah.
need to look at them in the face and address them. But the tolerance for constant stressors in your life is just, the Sadhguru said that when we worry about our freedoms,
Mm-hmm.
that's tragic. That's completely tragic. And so don't be afraid that you're not good enough. Be afraid that you're actually scared to live your best life.
Yeah.
Be very, very, very afraid that you will let your life go by without seeing how powerful and wonderful and majestic and unique and all of those things that you are. That's tragic. That's way worse than having a stressful job.
Yeah.
Put in your 2 weeks notice and walk out. What's stopping you? If you hate it, what's stopping you? Go live your life.
Yeah. I've encountered, fortunately or unfortunately, I have someone in my life that's older, and I'm seeing that he just didn't live. He just did the rat race, and he's, I think, realizing that life has passed him by. And it's sad to see that because he's almost 80. And I'm like, but it's a lesson for me, right? Because I've known that, but actually having that in front of me, it reinforces every decision that I make, that I won't be somebody at that age who regretted not trying something, not living. Because I think a lot of people just do that. And then when they come to 70 or 80, they're like, why didn't I do this? Why didn't I live this way? And
I,
that's super unfortunate.
yeah, it is. It's very unfortunate because nobody reaches the end of their life and says, I wish I had worked more, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and there are a lot of people that do the rat race,
Yeah.
but equally as many people reach the end of their life and say, I just wish I'd had the courage to be who I am instead of who I was told to be.
Mm,
You know, that I think is is so prevalent, and it is the way that so many women live just all day every day, you know, like, girl, if you don't want to be a housewife, go get a job.
yeah.
If you don't want to be a nurse, quit.
Yes.
And it's going to be terrifying. If you are a single mom with 3 kids
Yeah.
and you've got an amazing job
Yeah.
where you're making 50,000 or 70,000 or $100,000 a year, and you're like, it, I have stability. I know my children are taken care of, but I hate my life.
Mhm.
This is not the example that I want to be
Yeah.
for my kids. How do you do something different?
Different.
Maybe it's not quitting your job, but maybe you finally pick up that gardening class on the weekend that you've been putting off for years and years. Maybe you do say, you know what, it's worth the 30 to 80 bucks or whatever to pay the babysitter so that I can go to a yoga class and then go have tea or a cocktail with a friend.
Yeah.
Though your life matters. And if you're constantly living life by somebody else's standards of, I think about how my life could have been.
Mhm.
I always wanted to be an actor and a dancer and a singer.
Mhm.
But my mom said, you got to have a real job.
Yeah.
And real job to her was, she's a nurse. And so I was raised around medicine, raised around science, understood it. And so real kind of in my mind, which I think my mind mirrored hers, meant science. It meant
Mhm.
becoming a doctor or becoming, a researcher or something. And I just, yeah, I have a degree in chemistry and I have a doctorate in pharmacy. But what have I done? I figured out how to make pharmacy acting. I figured out, how do I fulfill my life's dream to be on stages and to speak and to share my story and to be creative and fun? Like, how do I do that? Well, I just figured out how to make science acting and
Yeah.
figured out how to transform my own understanding of what does it mean to be a scientist? Why is a yogi not a scientist? Why is an acupuncturist not a scientist? It's one of those ways that I just opened my mind up. And I also always stayed humble
Mhm.
in, there's a reason that humans have had certain healthcare practices for millennia. And
Mhm.
it's not because they don't work. If everybody says, essential oils are a fad and chiropractor's a fad and acupuncture, it's a fad, but fads don't last 5,000 years. It's not a thing.
Yeah.
It's totally not a thing. If meditation didn't work, why would we do it? Think about how much you fight meditation and how many people are like, I just can't meditate. If it didn't work, you wouldn't have this nagging voice in the back of your head that continued to tell you, you should probably just meditate. You should probably just meditate.
Mhm.
That nagging voice wouldn't be there if it didn't give you benefit.
Yeah, absolutely. Meditation for me, when I started that's over 10 years ago, it was a pivotal point in my life. It changed everything for me till this day. I haven't meditated as much in the last couple of weeks, but And whenever I tell people that, the people that I tell usually are non-meditators, but at least if out of the 20 or 30 I tell, if one picks it up, I mean, that's a win for me. So,
Yeah.
the women, when you were speaking about the women, I think women in general get held to a standard and they have to follow certain rules and they're told to be a certain way. And I think a lot of women are getting, I don't want to say shaken out of it, but they're changing their views about it. Because I know as women, you're expected to be a certain way, especially when you become a mother. You're expected not to really have any desires or goals anymore. At least that's how it was in my family. Once you became a mom, it was like, well, you're kind of died off. So you shouldn't have any goals or any aspirations because you're just the mom now and you're going to be just the mom. And that was hard. And obviously it didn't stick for me, but I'm much happier that it didn't stick because the moms that I see in my family, they're not doing so well.
Well, and I mean, I think it's one of those things that we, we, not to quote a Beyonce song, but here we go. We teach boys and we teach girls to be after marriage. Marriage is like the thing that we are taught to aspire to.
Yeah.
But we don't ingrain that same desire into boys. Boys they can go out, they can play the field, and boys will be boys and all the things. They can go and work an 80-hour-a-week job, and what happens, if a man works an 80-hour-a-week job, all of these like Jewish mothers are like lining up the daughters and are like, this guy will be an excellent provider. If a woman works an 80-hour-a-week job, oh, she'd be a terrible mother. Oh my gosh, she is not marriage material because she's married to work.
Yeah.
That's an unfair assessment, because just like there are men that are the breadwinners that pay the bills, there are also women that are breadwinners and pay the bills. And those two things do not have to be defined by gender. It can be defined by intellect and education and head starts that one person had over the other. It can be defined by generational wealth, generational trauma. All of those things play into the equation. And I don't know if your listeners are familiar with the enneagram, but it is a personality test, and there are 9 different types of personalities. And women so very often are kind of all told that we're supposed to be type 9, which is the peacemaker. If everybody else is okay, then I'm okay. Well, I'm a type 8. I'm the challenger. And so I am like the polar opposite of that. If I am okay, everybody else must be okay. And that is a completely different perspective. And so women who are peacemakers get seen as, oh, she is just so kind and so meek and mild. And she is just the epitome of femininity and all of these things. Whereas I take a step back and go, that poor girl hadn't advocated for herself in three plus years. She has not told anybody to go to hell in 15 years. She has never had a good angry scream at some object on behalf of a person who deserved it. That's not okay either. It's not okay for me as a challenger to realize, to go into every situation like a bull in a china shop. That's not okay either. I have to yield my challenger side and say, okay, well, there are times that is it really worth the fight or flight response where we go to dinner tonight? Is it really worth it if somebody has a really long-winded story that they want to tell me and I just want the bottom line? It's all of those things. We have to recognize who we are, the good, the bad, and the ugly, fully accept it, fully love it, and seek to surround ourselves for people who love us, who we are, and who we can love for exactly who they are. You
Yeah.
know, we can love them for exactly who they are. And
Yes.
we just, that's the ideal. When we can fully be authentic, our world starts to change.
Yes, absolutely. 1,000%. I totally believe that. How do you spell this, the test that you were speaking about? I don't know if I've heard of that, or maybe I have.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So it's called Enneagram. It's Enneagram. And I have absolutely no affiliation with this company. I'm not getting paid to tell you, but if you head to Enneagram Institute, they have a test. It's the most reputable test that I've found. And it's very affordable. It's like $12. And you will read your results. If you answer the questions clearly and authentically, when you read your results, you will be like, oh my gosh, it is so me. Because the Enneagram is special, I think, among personality tests, because it tells you, where are you on your best day? Where are you on your worst day?
Okay.
And most of us are not this bad, but there are, I believe, 8 layers of
Mhm.
function within the Enneagram. And at the lowest level for someone like me,
Mhm.
I could be a complete and total sociopath if I didn't flex my empathy vibe. I mean, trust me, I I want it my way or the highway. I just realize that that's not the way the world works. And so I humble myself into, guess what, guys? I actually don't know everything. And guess what, guys? I don't know what it's like to be that other person.
Yeah.
But if I didn't have that built into me,
Mhm.
I would not be able to put the brakes on that, and I devolve into sociopathy.
Yeah.
But at my greatest, I can be very altruistic. I can be heroic. I can go above and beyond and challenge the status quo in ways that might even be dangerous for me. And
Mhm.
I do that because I know it's right for humanity.
Mhm.
Um, and each of you has your own personality, and it will tell you where you are at your worst and at your best. And it's very, very eye opening to understand more of who you authentically are. And it also really helps in relationships and work environments, etc. You know, I know my partner, he is an enthusiast. If he gets something in his mind, he is going to enthusiastically do it, whether I tell him to or not, you know. And that also means, because he gets so enthusiastic, he might be overly critical of me. You know, he might tell me, don't do it this way, do it that way. And to compound it, he's a Virgo. And so we have all these like perfectionist tendencies as well. But because I know that about him, it allows me to greet that
Mhm.
with a gentleness of spirit of like,
Mhm.
babe, are you cooking dinner right now, or am I cooking dinner? He's like, you're cooking dinner. And I'm like, that is exactly right. And like, you know, my sister-in-law gave me a dish towel that says, your opinion is not part of the recipe. And that is good advice, I think, for all of us on so many levels.
Yeah.
So getting to know yourself and getting to know the people that you're around and how we really tick really helps us to embrace each other for who we actually are, the bad, the ugly, the ups and the downs.
Beautiful. Oh my goodness. I knew I would love this interview. So let's segue. Can we talk about the what essential oils? I know you said you read up about them, about like with for pets that are beneficial, ones that may have interactions with medications, anything like that.
Well, why don't we just start really simple?
Yeah.
You know, if we just think about, what can we do in our daily lives to get more peace,
Mhm.
enhance our sleep, reduce our stress load, get a little bit of pep of energy when we're feeling kind of groggy or sluggish? What can we do?
Yeah.
Well, think about certain, there are gentle and soothing essential oils,
Mhm.
things like like lavender, the basics of the most basic
Yeah.
probably of all the essential oils.
Yeah.
So lavender, ylang ylang, jasmine, you can think of essential oils that are very grounded and earthy. If you are someone who tends to be very flighty, and you have that very like, oh God, one task to the next, maybe apply a couple of drops of something like patchouli or vetiver to the bottoms of your feet, and spend just a bit of your mental energy focusing on your feet, the inside of your feet. I even heard somebody tell me to do this. I read this in a book and I was like, this guy must be crazy. But now I like try it all the time and I really genuinely think it works. If you divert just a tiny bit of your mental energy to focusing on the interior of your feet and like, are they hot? Are they cold? Can I feel the inside of my foot where it connects with my shoe? Can I feel, is it exposed to air? Is it encased in a sock? All of those things, but feel it from the inside. All of a sudden, the squirrel brain that's constantly going in the back of your head that says, well, can we, did we go to the grocery store? Did we check that text message? Oh my God, what's happening on Instagram? Just put all that energy into focusing on your feet. And so that plus some essential oil inhaled on the bottom of your feet is amazing. If you need a moment to just calm down and relax, what about like Roman chamomile? What about bringing in a cedar wood that has been used for millennia to help people focus as well as calm down? And you may say it's all flippin' hooey that essential oils have any impact over your ability to calm down, but your sense of smell is the only sense that you have that communicates directly with your limbic system. And the limbic system is the most ancient portion of your brain that encodes emotions, long-term memory, hormones. And you can think about your limbic system in this way. Explain to me why you married your spouse, or why do you reside with the partner that you reside with?
Mm-hmm.
Why them? And you can say a lot of things. You can say a lot of things like, oh, he is just so kind. He's a great provider. He's got this amazing job that gives us the freedom to go on vacations that we love. We have the same design aesthetic. The fact of the matter is that there are thousands and thousands of people that meet that exact same description, and you didn't marry a single one of them. There is something intangible. It is indescribable. And that is because your emotional center is housed within your limbic system, and your limbic system does not speak language. The sense of smell is the only thing that communicates with your limbic system. So you want to put the opposite of that to the test. Think about going out on a date with a potential suitor that you cannot stand the way that they smell, be it the cologne they're wearing, their body odor. You cannot stand the way that they smell. You will never end up in a long-term relationship with that person. It will not happen because it is evolutionarily ingrained within us. We pick partners with whom we have a connection to their smell, And so if you think that essential oils don't have an impact on your brain, then you are denying the sense of smell. I hear people say all the time, essential oils don't do anything. They can't go into your brain. And I'm like, did you smell it when you smelled it? And they're like, yeah, I smelled it. And I'm like, yeah, those are those molecules entering your brain and being encoded not only past the cilia in your nose and the receptor cells in your olfactory epithelium that can coalesce onto glomeruli in your olfactory bulbs that send projections into your limbic system that then send projections into the conscious portion of your brain known as the cortex. People need to understand that these things that we smell have emotional impact on us.
Yeah.
And we all know it instinctually. We all do. We smell what Christmas smells like, or we smell what grandmother's house smells like. We know that. And
Yeah.
it conjures up memories.
Yeah.
Essential oils can do the same thing. And so if you are needing a quick pick me up in the afternoon, grab some orange, grab some tangerine, some cinnamon, some clove, and simply just sit with your essential oils. Allow them to take you on a journey. And they're a great way, if you've never meditated, to change your brain for just those 30 seconds, to really encode into your brain. Because the more that we do things in tandem in our brain, the more that those neuronal networks get built together. So if you're living an extraordinarily stressed out life and your goal is, I want to spend 30 seconds a day in just a moment where there's no stress, grab some essential oil, inhale it during those 30 seconds of no stress, and realize that you have just made a connection that helps you in a moment where maybe you don't have 30 seconds, but you have 3 seconds you can inhale that oil. And inhaling that oil may trigger that neuronal connection that you made that helps you to understand it's okay. I can chill out right now.
Great, great, great. Do you have any essential oil companies that you recommend for our listeners?
I am a huge fan of Young Living, and that is the company that I've always been a part of. I worked for them, and I run an education website called yledclub.com. So if any of your listeners would like to join Young Living, simply reach out to me. At Lindsey Elmore or lindseyelmore.com. I'd be happy to help you get started on your journey, and that will gain you free access either for a month or indefinitely, depending on how you decide to get started with Young Living. So I would love if any of your listeners have never experienced essential oils. They really, really can. I mean, I hate to say it, but they'll change your life. I never wanted to believe it, and here I am, but they changed my life. They absolutely did. And I know that they can change your life in subtle ways that allow you to change your life in the big ways.
Okay, I like that. And then I know this is just a little bit to the left, but I just wanted to get a quick take on if you had any thoughts about this subject. What do you think about supplements, vitamins? I've heard different things from different practitioners about the way they're, because there's not really any policies on them on how they're manufactured. Is there any vitamins or supplements you look at yourself over others since you have the background as a pharmacist as well?
Well, there are a lot of great supplement companies out there. There are a lot of terrible supplement companies out there. Young Living does offer supplements. I take a lot of them. There is another company that has recently come into my awareness called Pure Encapsulations, which is a great company. And there is also ortho molecular products. I have a lot of pharmacists that carry them within their pharmacy, and also standard process. And last but not least, I cannot speak highly enough for Natron, and they produce probiotics. And the founder of the company, like her granddad was the chief yogurt maker of the king of Bulgaria. And so they have this huge family history of the cultivation of beneficial bacteria. And they make some very, very, very excellent probiotics. And, as strongly as I feel about, so many companies out there, I honestly think it's a matter of understanding what's going on in your body, looking for those buzzwords. If you're looking for quality, you can look to see if it's got a USP seal on it. Does it contain gluten or potentially allergenic ingredients such as shellfish or soy. Look to see if it's non-genetically modified. Look to see if it's plant-based. All of those things, if the company is good about creating labels, all of those things should be on the label.
Okay.
And excuse me, I have to cough.
Okay.
Pardon me. And so you can also simply ask your pharmacist. And I encourage you, find an independent pharmacy if you can, because when you support an independent pharmacy, it's supporting a small business, it's supporting a family, and it's also supporting a history of the practice of pharmacy where you can come in and get a more one-on-one touch, where you can actually expect that someone's going to teach you about your medications. And there are many pharmacists out there that have specialty practices where you might be able to find a bioidentical pharmacist, bioidentical hormone pharmacist in your area, or you might be able to find a pharmacist that does specialty compounding for fertility issues, or you might be able to find pharmacists that specialize in end of life care, which I think the way that we handle end of life care in this country is tragic in a lot of ways. And so allow a pharmacist to be a part of your healthcare equation. And if you can't find a pharmacist like me, there will become more and more of us. And just let your pharmacist know, if you go into your pharmacy, let them know, hey, doc, could I spend 5 minutes with you talking about my medications? If your pharmacist says no to that, change pharmacies instantly. And look around for independent mom and pop shops. Chances are, if you're living in a small town, there's a pharmacy that's probably been there for 100 years and is on the struggle bus and needs your help to stay in business and stay up to where the larger competitors, because I won't go into pharmacy politics, but there are a lot of them. So find a pharmacist who's willing to talk to you and who actually sees you as a person, and you're definitely on your right step.
Okay. That's like, you've given some invaluable information. I'm glad I have some good show notes to go over. So this is going to be wonderful. Let's see. I'm going to ask you some fun questions now. Is that good?
Let's do it.
All right. Perfect. What is your favorite food?
Oh my gosh. Goodness. I mean, I'm in the midst of I'm on day 24 of this cleanse. And so pizza sounds awesome right now. But honestly, I love home cooking. Give me a meal with some heart and soul, and give me a meal that came out of your garden. Off the top of my head right now, the thing that instantly comes to mind is a good old fashioned tomato sandwich with some white bread and some mayonnaise and some salt and pepper and a good old fresh tomato that you could eat like an apple if you wanted to. It just brings up all those feels for me right now.
You know what? I've never had a tomato sandwich.
Stop it.
I've never heard of a tomato sandwich. You're the first person I've ever heard say that.
You have just marked yourself as not a Southerner. Not a Southerner. This may be an unforgivable thing, and I may need to do a podcast segment with you where you taste your first tomato sandwich.
Yeah.
And you got to do it now, sister. You got to do it now. Now is tomato sandwich time, because you got to get the right tomato. You can't get one of those wimpy January tomatoes that taste like styrofoam masquerading as a tomato. You got to have the real tomato.
What's the real tomato? Is that the heirloom tomatoes?
Heirloom tomatoes work, beefsteak tomatoes work, but what you want is one of those tomatoes that you look at it and then you hold it in your hand and it feels like 14 times heavier than it looks, and you slice into it and it's just got lots of tomato flesh with not a lot of seeds, where it's just got that juiciness and that bite to it, where it's got that vibrant red, the red, so red that it's almost purple. That's the kind of tomato that you want for a tomato sandwich.
Oh, well, like I said, first time I've ever heard of this. Didn't know such a thing existed until you just told me that. Have you ever heard of an avocado sandwich? We make avocado sandwiches over here in the West Coast. Have you heard of those?
I mean, I've definitely had a fair share of my avocado toasts.
But they're
I've
different
definitely,
than that because I grew up with
okay.
them. So they're years ago. Like they're between two slices of bread. You put avocado. You can put mayo on it, and you put a slice of cheese, and
Uh-huh.
that's the sandwich. And that's been around for way before avocado toast for like 30,
Right.
35 over years. So
Yeah. I mean, you got to realize, so this just goes to show you like how much smaller the world has gotten.
yeah.
So I don't think I even knew what an avocado was until basically adulthood. Basically adulthood. I genuinely think I was dating my college boyfriend and he was from Florida, which meant that they could grow
Yeah.
avocados where he
Yeah.
was from.
Yeah.
And he's like, let's eat an avocado. And I was like, sure, cause whatever. But I did not know an avocado was a thing. And I remember back in the day when vegan restaurants were all like you had to have dreadlocks in order to enter, and all of the food was like sprouts and not much else. Like I do remember having an avocado and sprout sandwich on like the kind of bread that's so healthy that it tastes like paste in your mouth, you know? I remember that. And that was one of my first forays with avocado. And I was like, why would anybody like this? And now like everybody else, I am on board with team avocado. And so, yeah, but now I got to try an avocado sandwich, just piece of cheese, some mayonnaise and some salt and pepper and call it a day.
Yeah, and use the white bread because this is an old recipe. This isn't
Oh
the
yeah.
new dreadlock recipe. This is like
Right.
kind of like your
No.
tomato sandwich. It's white
Yes.
bread, slice of
Hmm.
cheese, mayo, and some salt and cheese, and that's
Yeah.
good. So, and I'll
Yeah.
try your tomato sandwich for sure.
We're not doing this for health. We are doing this for sheer joy, which
Yes,
is also healthy.
it is absolutely. Okay, and then one more. Well, I'm gonna have two more questions, but this one, I'm interested to see if there's any books that you would recommend that you're enjoying reading or that you want to read next.
Well, I can give you, I just finished reading The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy.
Mhm.
One line summary, I guess, is that success is not what happens overnight. Success is the series of boring and mundane things that you're willing to do every single day.
Mhm.
I'm currently in the middle of reading Clean Seven by Dr. Alejandro Younger. And that is, so I run my own food blog called Clean Slate Cleanse, and I've been doing Clean Slate Cleanse based eating for the past 3 weeks. But I decided I wanted to try a new cleanse and just try something better or try something different. And so I added in the Clean Seven eating principles, which are all about how do we eat according to Ayurveda, as
Hmm.
well as with intermittent fasting.
Okay.
And then the next book on my agenda, which I'm extraordinarily excited about, is called The Triumph of Doubt: Dark Money and the Science of Deception. And it goes through how the tobacco industry wrote the industry standard on how do we confuse people with science. Because think about it, everybody said, well, smoking is perfectly safe. 9 out of 10 doctors smoke Marlboros. All of that stuff was industry sanctioned, and the industry would hire scientists to do these studies to say smoking is safe, smoking is safe.
Yeah.
We see no different today. It's
Mhm.
just, think about it. The doubt surrounding science is extraordinarily profound. Just think about, how are you supposed to eat? Are you supposed to eat plant-based or Mediterranean, or is it keto? Is it paleo? Maybe it's low FODMAPs. Maybe you're supposed to be a flexitarian or a pescatarian.
Yeah.
The doubt surrounding all those things is profound. And so I'm very excited to read the full history by the writer David Michaels, who is a former executive at the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. So OSHA, right, is he is a former worker there, and he basically goes through the debate around opioids. Opioids aren't addictive. Yeah, concussions. He details the NFL about how, concussions aren't a problem in the NFL. And now all of a sudden it's like, then why are all of your players dying at age 60 from early onset Alzheimer's secondary to traumatic brain injury? And it's not all of them, but we've seen brain injuries. But obesity, what causes it? What causes climate change? Is climate change real? It's the triumph of doubt. And when there is that debate that will never be settled, guess what? It's just endless media fodder.
And totally confuses people. And that's how I feel a lot of the healthcare right now is occurring, especially with people. There's so much fear. Like I didn't know anything about this whole chiropractic smear, but I feel like that has added to people not really venturing into holistic care as much as they would have, just because there's pushback from maybe other entities that wouldn't want that to occur. So, gosh, okay. So I'm gonna purchase that one on Amazon because that sounds super interesting. And let's see. So one more question. So is there anything that I didn't ask you that I didn't know to ask you that you would like to say?
Oh my gosh, I am also a really powerful salsa dancer. So if you need lessons, you know where to find me.
You're so okay, salsa dancer. Perfect. I'm not the greatest dancer, but I did take ballroom dancing, and I actually liked that a lot more than I thought I would.
It's super fun, and it's good for you. It's good for your brain. It's good for social connection. It's good for all the things.
Okay. All right. Maybe I think my boyfriend likes that kind of stuff. We went dancing, even country music, and he was like really just out there. So I'll look into that. All right. Well, it's been wonderful having you on. I totally appreciate everything you said. I'm pretty positive we went over. Yes, we did.
It's all right.
Okay. So thank you for being with me, and I really appreciate all of your info.
Thank you so much for having me.